This is Bob Dickey, and welcome to another episode of Taking the Lead podcast. My guests today are Joe D'Arcangelo from Milford, Michigan, and Ken Herman from Suttons Bay, Michigan. We recently had the opportunity to enjoy a pheasant hunt at the Thundering Aspens in Mesick, Michigan. I asked the guys to join me on the podcast today to talk about our time together and the things that they have learned in life. You know, I always enjoy learning more about my friends and gleaning insights from their experiences, and boy, we had a lot of them during this hunt. I really think you're going to enjoy this one, so let's jump right in. All right. Well, Kenny, we were just joking. I'm actually recording right now, so we're gonna use it. We're just a couple of buds, just sitting back having a good conversation. I was just letting you know how much I enjoyed spending time with you up there.
Yeah, it was
at your home. Yeah, it was awesome. I appreciate you taking the initiative to get us all pulled up there.
Yeah, we're ready to do it again. You know, that little cabin sleeps 14.
Well, the next
close those beds were.
Dude,
we're all close, but those beds were 3-4 inches apart from each other.
And did you have your own room at the fire hall?
Actually, I did. Yeah. I was kind of a big deal, though.
Yeah, you were.
I would bet it's because you were snoring.
No, it's actually, they're all individual beds anyway with an open door. So you had your own, like, kind of a privacy. Actually, the females had their own room with a door on it. Mm-hmm. But listen, guys, we had a guy that totally walked in his sleep all the time. Mm-hmm. I would put a fan in front of the doorway. I close a chair, and I'd wake up. He's looking over me. Like the guy, he just walked in his sleep all the time. His name was Chris. That was the scariest thing in the world, man.
Dude. I know that's usually something that happens like when you're a kid, but usually you kind of like grow out of it as an adult. You know, you don't have that same type of sleepwalking, so that is kind of scary.
No, they changed the name of it to Peeping Tom or Stalker.
Yeah.
One time he was up walking in his sleep. He was in the bathroom. We had a bathroom right in there. So he was sitting down in the bathroom. Tones went off with a structure fire. I'm out getting all my stuff on in the truck. I don't see him anywhere. He decided to go all the way back upstairs to the bunk rooms and actually get him off that to go to. He was sleeping. He didn't even know we had a structure fire. So his house was burning down.
Oh my gosh. I think that's a liability at some point. You're like, dude, I know you want to be a fireman, but this isn't working out.
That's why you have a partner.
Yeah.
Blind surgeon.
Well, Kenny, speaking of that that clubhouse you have up there, I want to dive into the hunt, because the next time we go hunting, I would love to go when there's snow on the ground. It's a little cold. I'm not sure what you'd be hunting up there during the middle of the wintertime, but maybe you can tell us. But I mean, I had a blast. We did a little pheasant hunting, and that club you're a part of is super nice. It is set up, and it was.
We can hunt pheasants in the snow there.
Really?
Yeah.
How does your dog do in the wintertime?
Well, the challenge, sometimes the birds would rather, obviously they'd rather run than fly. Mm-hmm. And in the wintertime, until the snow gets so deep that they can't run without, having to plow a little bit. Mm-hmm. They also stand out pretty good, all those colors against that white backdrop. Yeah. And Buddy sometimes will see them before he smells them.
Okay.
And then that's a track meet.
Yeah.
Because he's going, and he's gotten a whole lot better as he's gotten older about, making sure that he sets a pace that the hunters can, do their part as well. Right. Otherwise, they flush the birds so far out that you just kind of wave at them. It's like a jet leaving. So.
I love your dog, but Buddy is one heck of a dog. That a great hunting dog. I couldn't believe how big he was, and that guy is fast. So we were getting ready to go. We were packing all the gear up at your house, and I think one of the coolest things I witnessed. He could not wait to get into the back of the truck. Actually, this is when we pulled up into the fields. I take that back. We pulled up into the fields, and one of our guides was had his pickup truck parked next to us, and he had the topper open, but he didn't have the tailgate open. and he had one of his dogs, the hunting dog, in the back, and Buddy, like all fours, looked like a kangaroo. I mean, just literally leapt, not just up into the bed of the truck, but over the gate. I couldn't believe it. That's like 6 foot. It's got to be 5 feet off the ground. I mean, it just looked
standing still. The dog
standing
was
still, just standing still.
Just leaped.
Right? Like he was gonna, and just right up into the back. And this is a big dog. He's, what does it say? What kind of dog is he?
He's a black lab.
Big black lab. And he's got to weigh what? Close to 100 pounds. I mean, the thing is enormous.
I was back down there last week, and 2 of the other hunters that were there had labs, and the guide also ran a lab. And I just told them there's only 2 kinds of bird hunters in the world: those that hunt with black labs and those that wish they did. So, you know, I threw that out, so because I had the whole fraternity there that day.
Well, I can see why you're proud of him. I know you talk up the dog in advance. He was like, man, he's going to go crazy, and he sure enough did. I mean, but I can see why you're so proud of him. That's an amazing dog. Love him.
You can talk about somebody's pickup. You can talk about somebody's gun. You can talk about how poorly they shoot. But if you insult the dog, now you could come to blows with somebody at that point. He actually won a retrieving contest on Tuesday down there.
Really?
Different guy. He said, I'm going to run my black lab, if you don't mind, because your dog won't get a chance to retrieve. And I just kind of smiled. And Johnny, who was our guide the day that we went, was standing there, and he said, after Sam said, well, it sounds like a challenge. And I said, well, you can take it any way you want. And Johnny said, I'm betting on Buddy. Well, he finally let the dog out after we had hunted a little bit. And we got, in 2 passes, we got 6 roosters, and Buddy retrieved all 6. His dog didn't get a chance to grab one of them. So he put the dog back in the kennel and saved him for the afternoon.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Johnny's one heck of a guy. I tell you what, those guys know how to do it right. And you're right. You can say a lot of things about, you know, guns and trucks and you name it, but when you start talking about a man's dog, you better be careful. I mean, Johnny didn't know that I have a golden retriever / Irish setter mix. I remember asking him, you know, what were the best hunting dogs, and he stepped on one. And he was like, yeah, well, one of the dumbest ones is Irish setters. And I was like, and immediately I like, all right, we're going to blows, bud. Let me tell you about my Irish setter. She's amazing.
He didn't really think my little white Shih Tzu of my mother-in-law's I inherited was a real good one either.
Yeah.
You remember the pattern interrupt that I threw in there at that point? When you said it was a cross?
Yeah. You were. I could tell you were trying to let me diffuse the situation here.
He looked at me like I was crazy, but honest to God, true story. I was told that a first-generation cross, you usually get the best characteristics of both breeds.
Yep.
But he didn't seem to think that was a true statement.
No. Well, I'll tell you that the Irish setter golden retriever that I have is hands down the smartest dog I've ever owned, and you know, she's amazing. I know I joke she's a hunting dog. I mean, I'm sure her ancestors were bred to hunt, but I haven't taken her hunting. But I mean, she's, in terms of just like a personal dog, she's been a great companion.
Yeah.
Great companion, but Bob, maybe not I mean, every time you go out of town, she hides in your closet underneath your clothes. So I don't know if you call that smart or love, maybe love.
It's loving. She's upset. I mean, she's extremely attached, and so yeah, that's a true statement. I've taken some pictures. I'll have to put one in the show notes. But if I leave her, and because she goes with me during the day. I mean, she's with me. I mean, right now she's under my desk, right? So she comes with me to work every single day. When she hears the alarm go off in the morning, she knows exactly what to do. She's got a routine, and she does not like being left. And when I leave the house and I don't take her with me, she'll literally go into my closet and she will wiggle her way back behind all of my clothes, and she'll just lay there. She won't come out until I come home. So it's maybe she might be a little psychotic. Brandy says you have made her into such a codependent. You know, she doesn't function without you. So,
Well, true love, Bob.
Yeah, true love. That's it.
Your kids don't bury themselves in the closet when you leave.
Well, luckily, no. Luckily, no. Yeah. That's right.
Maybe when he comes home.
I think my wife leaves when I leave. She'll hide anywhere. I'm just.
Well, we got to talk about. I want to dive into some more of this hunting and all the various fun that Joe and I had. But Kenny, you've not been on the podcast before. I know, Joe, you and your wife Laura have been on. So we've got listeners who know a little bit about you. But I'm going to ask you guys both the same question. But I feel like I got to learn a little bit more about each and every one of you. It's one of the things I love about spending time, like outside of just regular business settings. Whether going on adventures, hunting, fishing, whatever the case may be, you just get to know people better. But Kenny, I want you to have an opportunity to, share a little bit about your background and allow people to know a little bit more about you. So the question I have for you to start is, who is Ken Herman? How would you sum yourself up? What's your elevator pitch? Ken Herman.
My elevator pitch, I guess. Wow, you could have given me that one last week. I like making people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
I always had, to the point where I think probably when I was in school, I didn't care if they laughed at me or not. I just wanted to make sure they were laughing.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy working with kids. I started in college after high school to be a teacher, and then chemistry class got in the road. So I decided if you got to have chemistry to be a teacher, I guess I got to do something else. But I was able to kind of fill in that void with all the coaching that I've been fortunate enough to be allowed to do. I guess I would say it that way. I've run a couple of ski clubs. I've been a ski school director. I coached at the varsity level here at our local school I graduated from, both basketball and baseball. Was asked to help coach the football team, but that would have been 13 months a year that I had to be volunteering my nights, and I had to kind of, back away from that. But I went into the building business because I was a general contractor. My dad was in the excavating business. My family on both sides were business owners in the trades, pretty much construction. And, if I'm competitive to a point, my wife says to a fault, but I'm competitive to a certain point, probably more than I should be, maybe, if you can be. If there's a hiccup or something going on around, I don't mind if I can offer assistance or advice from experience rather than just taking a wild guess at it. Free advice is worth what you pay for it, but sometimes it can be good. And I've gotten so much back from the athletes that I have had the pleasure to work with in high school, through our ski clubs. I did it for nothing, but I gained a whole bunch from doing that. So I guess I kind of like helping out a little bit. Don't mind getting my hands dirty. If I get really frustrated when people look at a problem and say, we can't do that. I used to tell the kids on the basketball team that the bleachers and the benches were full of people that couldn't or thought they couldn't. I was just looking for those that thought they could. So, when in the building business, I remember a specific situation where I had 5 people on my crew telling me we weren't going to be able to get that cast iron tub in the building unless we had some special machine. And I said, well, we don't have a special machine, and the owner wants it in the bathroom, so that's where we're going to put it. And don't tell me we can't do it. We're going to. And about an hour later, it was in there. After we uncrated it. And so that's who I am, I guess. I would rather have you ask my wife that question.
I'm sure she'd be able to give a great response.
If I can add to that, guys,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Kenny. If I can add to that, because you're so darn humble. Kenny is a staple in that community, Bob, as you know. His family's been well known he's a family man, the leader of his family, the leader of many organizations up there.
Mm-hmm.
There's street names after the Hermans up there.
Mm-hmm.
There's businesses named after the Hermans. And so everywhere you go out there, people know who Ken and Kathy Herman are.
Yeah.
So I know he's not going to say all that, but that's why he lives up in Suttons Bay. That's his home. That's where he lives. And we're just happy to have him as a partner in everything we do. But I know he wouldn't say all that, but I just want to add that in.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I remember we were driving past a park, and it was named was it Herman Way, right, or Herman Park or something? And I was like, is that named after you guys? And Ken, you're like, oh yeah, it was this such and such family, but yeah, it's a beautiful place up there, and I could tell everywhere we went, you were well respected, well known, and you've done a great job of putting down roots in that community. I think everything that you've shared with me just now resonates with me. It's something that I took mental note of as we were staying with you over the weekend, and you were showing us around the house. Virtually nothing you talked about was regarding your business or your work. Your life wasn't defined by that. And a lot of times, like when you're getting to know somebody, and that they immediately gravitate to, well, this is what I do, things like that. And as we were walking through your home, all the stories were about the kids that you had coached and mentored as you were growing up. There's pictures of baseball teams and football teams and basketball teams, and we took a look at your little ski shop, right, where you had your skis, and you've talked about all the, you go out to Colorado and you coach kids in ski camps, and then it was when we went over to the hunt club and all the things that you've done with your own children over there, and there was just so much. You're passionate about these outdoor activities, but more importantly, you were passionate about sharing that. Some people like to participate in activities. You're the type of person who likes to participate in those activities, but more importantly, likes to share them with others and help other people have success in those activities. And I think that's exactly what you did with Joe and I, right? Like I've shot, I do a target practice from time to time. I love sporting clays, but I would not classify myself as a pheasant hunter. I've done it one time prior to this, and I had an absolute blast with you. And by the end of the day, you made me feel like I was a real hunter. I was holding up pheasants and having a blast. No pun intended.
You guys. My first exposure to both of you around firearms was when we shot sporting clays,
mm-hmm.
and the transition. That's a lot of guys can hit clay targets, but I'm pretty sure the first 5 birds that the dog brought back, I didn't shoot. I know I didn't shoot. You two guys shot them. And I had somebody on the team ask me, because they saw some of the photos, did Joe really shoot that, or was he just holding one? I didn't kill a bird for 20 minutes, or longer than that. You guys I know you got at least the first 5, if not more than that. And so it was nice to see your transition from sporting clays, where you got ready, you had the safety off, you had the gun up, you called pull, to walking along and having to do all that while you're identifying a target. That's not an easy transition. And I think it probably, and this kind of pains me to say this, but in one respect, and it doesn't pain me. I shouldn't say it that way, but you guys are athletes, both of you, and that's why you're able to make that transition. And that was my response to, we know about Bob's accolades athletically, but I didn't realize that Joe was, had all those varsity letters and all those medals and ribbons hanging someplace.
That's another podcast, guys.
Yeah. Okay. But the other thing is that even before the sporting clay thing, both of you, you were interested in the shotguns and learning a little bit about that. And then the night before we went hunting, you ask, and I understand it's more about, hey, what should we be prepared for tomorrow? Via clothing, via boots, because you've not been there. It's that fear of the unknown,
right.
and or not fear, but curiosity maybe about the unknown. But you kept asking questions, and this is not always the case with me. I waited for another question before I gave an answer. Usually I can go. I can rattle on if I have to, if I'm allowed to.
That was one of my favorite things, is just ask a question and then and hear you be able to take it. It's like you had knowledge and insight on everything that we were asking. I was just taking mental notes, and it's one of the things I love to do in life is experience things that are new, right? So as you get older and as you do more and more things, it can be challenging. Sometimes people like to get into a rut, right? They like routine. And I think the richness of life is breaking out of those routines and doing things, figuring out things that you can do that it's the very first time that you're doing it. It's a new experience because it triggers a different part of your mind of the newness, and the anticipation, the excitement, and the learning and growing. So I loved the process of even driving from Tennessee up to Sutton's Bay, right? Thinking about it in the car ride up, the anticipation of the hunt, and then being able to ask you questions. I mean, one of the things that was fascinating for me, and I wanted to maybe get into this a little bit. Joe, prepare yourself, because I'm going to be asking you the exact same question. Who is Joe Darkangelo? I want to hear your insight. But I've really enjoyed, Kenny, learning more even just about the shotguns and going to the store there that you've got and being able to take a look at, like, I've got, your basic shotguns, but more for self-defense as opposed to, sporting clays and pheasant hunting and things along those lines. So to see some of the artwork on these guns and to realize that, entry level, you can get in there for a few grand, but I mean, they were $50,000 shotguns from London in there, and the intricacy of all the design, and you knew all these different patterns, you knew the different brands, and just be able to hear you talk about this, I was like, I love being around someone who is passionate about things in life and have done a lot of due diligence to understand it. It's so rich.
And they wouldn't even let us take those out for a test run either.
I know. Can you believe it? Darn it.
I'll bring this back in a couple hours, $60,000 shotgun.
With some mud caked all over it.
They don't rent those. Yeah.
Well, we're going to get back into the shotguns because, Kenny, I want to hear you give some insights and all that. But it truly is an art form, right? The craftsmanship and the art on these firearms is just absolutely beautiful. But for Joe, for people who may be new to the podcast or not have listened to a previous episode, who's Joe Darkangelo?
Well, I'm Joe Darkangelo, the husband of Laura Darkangelo, first, right? I've been married 31 years and 2 adult children. We live here in Milford, Michigan, and my 2 adult children are 29 and 27. My 27-year-old daughter just got married, and my 29-year-old son is getting married in Italy next year, and so he lives up in Telluride, Colorado, running a restaurant out there. So first of all, I'm a family man, but I've been a businessman for a lot of years. I used to be in a food business, pizza business years ago, but I just love being an entrepreneur and doing things like this hunt that we all did, you guys together, just fun. I mean, that's me. Mm-hmm. That's what we love doing. I love spending time with family and friends and just having a good old time, because association and community and just having fun and relationships are everything. So that's what I think I'm all about. I try to do my best to serve and help other people, and it's just fun. Just live life. One thing's for sure, we all know that tomorrow's not guaranteed, and as you go through your day, as you get a little older, I realize that more. Mm-hmm. I heard someone say one time that life's like a roll of toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the faster it goes, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so true. So I'm in a stage in my life now that I just turned 24 that I'm just joking. that it's all about, I want to make a difference. I've been to a lot of funerals. I don't want to be that guy. Just people have some potato salad and they go on with their life. So I want to make a difference out there, and some of that difference is hanging out with you two great fellas like we do. So thanks for your guys' time and all the fun that we have.
Well, Joe, one of the things that I love about you is when I think of Joe D'Arcangelo, one of the things that I think of is a guy that just sucks the marrow out of life. Every time I'm around you, I've never been around you where you've had a bad day. I've never been around you where you're not having fun and where you don't have a big smile on your face. And when you're around Joe D'Arcangelo, people are having fun. And, I think especially now and everything that's going on in the world around us, it's like your type of personality and the way that you live life, it's contagious and people enjoy being around you. It was enjoyable being on this hunt, being able to, chat with you, chat with Ken, learn together, see you get birds, and we just had an absolute blast. And then of course the other thing is that one thing that you didn't mention is that you've got a nephew that is playing football at the University of Illinois, and they are on, I think the record's 4-1. They've got the number one running back in the country. He plays linebacker. And just this year, right, to hear the stories, how you're traveling and going and participating in these games. And right after this hunt, you went over to Wisconsin to watch them put a whooping on Wisconsin. But to see how much fun you're having with that, living that experience, learning from him, right, seeing what it's like to be an NCAA college athlete at a top program, learning all the ins and outs behind it, and just so it's fun to watch you have fun and to see how you're supporting your family. Maybe you can share some insights to some of the things that you're learning in that respect here with all the listeners.
It's so funny because I'm going to be doing a talk at a national training event coming up here next week, and a lot of that is about full commitment and being all the way in, and a lot of it is based on his story from where he started to where he's at now, where we think he's going to be. So you'll hear a lot of that next week. But I was just finishing writing up, doing some PowerPoint and everything this morning, and Laura, I had my wife come up here to the office. I said, Laura, look at this. What do you think about these pictures? Even though I already sent them in, to IT to get it approved. And as I got through the end of it, I started crying. Like this is like, she goes, oh my God. And Laura's crying. This just happened 20 minutes before this podcast.
Oh, wow.
And the only reason I tell you that is because it is emotional. It is like, we're trying to go to every one of his games. Between my brother's 6 kids and my 2, he's, a lot of them have played professional sports, but not at this level going where we think he's going to go. And not to just Messick's the baby of the family. And he just texted me a little bit ago. I asked him to send me a picture of something that we were all at. And he said, just love you, Uncle Joe. That's all. So there's a lot to that. There's lots of family. There's lots of, and being able to do that every weekend and seeing different college stadiums. It's been a blast, man. And, there's only one senior year in college football.
That's it.
And unless they extend him for 1 year through the turn, or if he goes to the NFL draft, whatever it is, but we're leaving again early in the morning tomorrow for Illinois. They're gonna hopefully put a whooping on Iowa, and we'll be there for a couple of days. Be fun though.
Oh,
learn a lot. There's a ton to learn from someone that's all in with full commitment, and that's what Isaac D'Arcangelo's got for sure.
That's the only way to live life. There's people in my life that I know that are not all in on anything. It's almost like they're just kind of they're willing to show up, and they're just kind of, I hate to say it, but it just feels like they take space, right? And they're just like kind of sleepwalking a little bit through life. And I don't enjoy hanging out and being around people that have that mentality. I love being around people like you and Ken and your nephew who are, whatever they're doing, they're all in, right? And it's a great way to live life and to learn and to grow. Speaking about being all in, Ken. So tell it, we were 100% all in on this hunt. So walk us through the prep work, right? And some of the things that you're doing, because I know you got this set up in advance, and this was we actually had a promo within our company. So for people who hit a certain sales goal, we're able to come along on this trip. And unfortunately, Jim Martin, who's a good friend of ours and was going to be on the trip with us, the hurricane down in Florida kept him locked in, and he and his family were had to kind of hunker down there. And fortunately, they and the rest of our community members in the Florida area are all okay, but they weren't able to be up. But walk us through the prep work for a hunt, and are there any parallels in life in terms of preparation? I mean, I feel like no matter what you do in life, preparing for success is extremely important. You don't just wake up the morning of and just grab your shotgun and be like, all right, let's go. But there's things that you do to prepare to be successful in the hunt and in almost any endeavor in life, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll go back to the dog. Mm-hmm. You have to prep in a way that the dog doesn't know what he's going to do in the morning, or he doesn't sleep at night. Mm-hmm. And if the dog's not sleeping, nobody's sleeping.
Yeah, you told us, you're like, don't bring any hunting gear out. I've got to make sure that the dog doesn't know that we're going hunting tomorrow. Otherwise, he'll be bouncing off the walls all night long.
Yeah. And I didn't let him. I normally let him ride in the back of in the back seat of the pickup if we go down there. Mm-hmm. And I knew I couldn't do that because he'd have trampled both you and Joe in his. And so when I went again this past week, and I let him ride in the back seat because it was just me going down. Mm-hmm. And I won't do that again. He can ride in the back seat on the way home because he's pooped. Mm-hmm. But he just, he had the windows fogged up. It was craziness. But he's part of one of the tools mm-hmm. that we have. You almost stepped on a bird. It almost took your hat off when it flew up. Mm-hmm. That's the only bird we would have seen without the dogs.
Yeah.
I
literally stood right on top of a bird, and all of a sudden, just like almost, it could have flown up my shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the one that mm-hmm. we'd have seen.
Yeah.
The dogs identify, they're for sure the tool that we need. And
it's amazing. They were radar. They flushed them all. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah. So the other thing is just turning you guys over to Johnny when mm-hmm. we got there. Because, there's liability issues at the club and safety issues, and they can't afford to let something that's maybe an unsafe practice go unnoticed. And he did comment when we left that, it was a really enjoyable day. I think he was really happy that we limited out early, mm-hmm. Which made his afternoon a little bit better or easier. Mm-hmm. But he also said that, the guys had no problem with the safety issues, any of that kind of stuff. But I got to have water for the dog. I got to have something for him after the hunt. Mm-hmm. Make sure that we've got the right ammo. It goes back to the right tools for the mm-hmm. job is what it really boils down to. And then you turn it over to the guide. Mm-hmm. It's almost like you're getting on an airplane. And different guides operate differently down there. One of the guides down there, he almost acts like he doesn't know where he wants to go next. Mm-hmm. But Johnny, obviously, he had a plan for the day as well. Mm-hmm. I always let him know how many hunters I'm bringing, and how much they've hunted. And, they prepare accordingly as well. So, you learn what's necessary and unnecessary the night before and the day of by, repetition in that activity. Mm-hmm. I used to take 6 gallons of water down there for the dog. Now I take a half gallon because I know there's water on the property that the dog's going to have access to. I used to when I first started going there with our over and under shotguns, I would put a different size shot in the second barrel than I used in the first barrel, which is just more to manage. Mm-hmm. Now you got different shells at different pockets, and that was unnecessary. And just as a result of not thinking about it, because you're never going to plan it out right the first time, but just going down there, doing it, okay, PDCA it, if you will. Yeah. I guess I don't need 2 sizes of shells. I guess I don't need to be carrying this much water.
You just need a lot of shells.
Yeah. And Joe followed instructions. Boy, Johnny said shoot. Joe shot. So that's all good. We didn't go down there to watch him fly. We went down there to shoot. So
nothing happens until you shoot.
That's right.
My Grandpa Gray said, can't hit him if you don't shoot. And can't argue that one.
Bob, he had me shooting at birds that were, seriously, got to be 60 yards away. He said, shoot anyway. I swear he was selling us the ammo or something.
Yeah, I saw a couple that looked like a speck in the sky, and you were still blasting at them. I was like, well, we'll see.
I don't think there was a couple that he shot at. The birds never heard the gun go off.
You know, as you're talking about the prep work there, Kenny, it's interesting. It's like you have to do the prep work in advance to have a successful hunt. But there's also this element of managing the energy, right? So like you intuitively knew that you had to manage the energy of the dog. You had to get him ready. But if your dog, Buddy, spent all of his energy bouncing off the walls of your house in the truck and showed up at the hunt spent, he's not going to get anything done. And because where you want the dog to spend its energy is in the field, flushing the birds. That's where it's going to be successful. I would say I see a parallel in life, like in track and field or in cross country when I was in college. There were folks that I knew of that were world class at expending a ton of energy in the off season, and like all the plans and this, that, the other, and they would come in to the season in tip top condition. And problem is, championship season is in October, November. SEC championships, national championships. And I tell you what, they would be world beaters at the first race of the season, and literally they wouldn't even make the team in October and November. So it's to be successful. I think you've got to manage. You got to manage your energy. You got to manage, and so I think that there's a parallel to that in business as well, right? So understanding, right, like there's some people who will just like spend so much time talking about what they're going to do, talking about the plans, making the plans, all that type of. But hey, at the end of the day, are you expending energy where it matters most, in execution mode, or like Buddy flushing those birds?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Joe, do you remember? I remember Johnny told you 2 things while we were there. He actually told you one thing in particular, your index finger on your left hand. And then he mentioned to all of us, if more than one bird goes up, make sure that you focus on one bird. Mm-hmm. And that rings true in everything that we do. But I don't, that might be something you want to share. But I remember when he said that, make sure you don't shoot at the cubby, shoot at one of the birds in the cubby.
Yeah, for sure. When we started, you talked about you didn't hit the first few birds, and I wasn't paying attention, but I was writing it down. Just joking. Yeah. But we were walking. Think about this, guys. We were walking through that field, and at the beginning, we didn't even know. At least I didn't know. You guys have been pheasant hunting before. I didn't even know what I was shooting at. I knew something go up. I saw little things go up. I didn't know what. I just know not to shoot you two, Johnny or Buddy, right? So the first couple of shots, we missed the first 3 or 4 shots, right? Mm-hmm. But we were getting warmed up. Now, many people could say, listen, I missed the first 3 shots. I'm done. I'm never going to hit anything. But I knew eventually, there's power in numbers, right? Mm-hmm. So as we're walking through there, and then we hit a couple, got lucky, and then I kind of went on a cold spell, and then Johnny, our guy, just said, hey, Joe, like Kenny was just talking about, put your finger, just point to it, put the finger on the bottom of the barrel. Now, I've been shooting a lot of guns, and whether it's from the police department years ago or just wherever, at ranges and everything, I've never done that, right? So, but I've never shot birds that were flying away from me, mm-hmm. right? So by just putting that finger out there and pointing, mm-hmm. the next 5 or 6 birds, I think I hit right away, right? Yep. But then what happened, but But if I could have said, well, listen, I've been shooting a lot of guns for a lot of years, I would have never shot another bird. So I was able just to take his advice. I'm like, I told Kenny, for everybody on this podcast, I said, Kenny, I've known you for a long time, and you've never told me to do that. I've been shooting with you. You've never told me to do that. Why is Johnny just met me today? You got to tell me. So we started hitting things, right? Yeah. And then after a while, I kind of forgot about it because I was totally focusing on it. Then when I was just putting my gun up to shoot, I missed a couple more, right? But the point of that whole thing is just counting on what people are. They're really mentoring you, coaching you what to do, and trust, because this guy's a pro. I mean, for sure. So that I just want to comment a little bit on that whole finger pointing thing. So I'll always do that now. Yeah,
such a simple little thing to do, right? And it goes to show that when you're trying something or learning something, getting around an expert who's been there and done that. And Johnny was able to intuitively just take a look at you. I mean, you'd been around him a handful of like 30 minutes, right? And he was like, oh, hey, Joe, by the way, do this. Just point with your finger underneath the shotgun. And it was like, you took it. And it just a little tip like that. And your success rate went from wherever it was to, I mean, it was just an enormous improvement, right?
It was so good, I had birds hanging on my belt. And my britches were falling down.
Your britches were falling down. And so many birds hanging off your pants. That's great insight in terms of no matter what we're trying to do in life, find an expert, get around them, ask questions, right? So you were humble, you were inquisitive. You didn't walk in and be like, dude, I'm a police officer. I've been shooting guns since I was like 5 years old. I know what I'm doing. You were asking questions, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And you could tell that Johnny just knew what he was talking about. I mean, he lives, it's a family business. He lives, he breathes it. He knew when he was like, Buddy was getting birdie. He'd say, getting birdie. So we'd all remember that guys would say, he's getting birdie, and then we're just sitting there waiting like something was going to happen.
Right.
And so the dog knew. But what was so cool, the best thing I loved about the dogs, not just that those dogs were awesome, is that when that birds went down 60, 70 yards away, none of us had to go run after getting those birds. Buddy just brought it right back to you.
Yep. That was the best.
Yeah. It's again, like you said, Joe, he had the fruit on the tree. Johnny, I had to tell you, he's a world-class taxidermist. He's only guiding because they're short of guides. He should be working on taxidermy, but
I didn't know that.
It's the family business. It's just, I told you this, Bob, it's a kind of place just to give you a feel for what it was, because I knew this would I thought this would resonate with you, is that you wouldn't mind having your kids grow up around these guys.
Yeah. No, they were world class in every way. But just for our listeners, what's the name of the hunt club that you're a part of, just so they can?
It's called Thundering Aspens.
Thundering Aspens, and it's not actually in Suttons Bay. It's close by. What's the township it's in?
A little town called Mesick. Not far from Cadillac, an hour and 15 from Grand Rapids, which most people might be familiar with. We like to keep it a secret. No, we don't want to keep it a secret.
Not anymore, Kenny.
Not anymore. But I went down there. My first reason for going down there is I wanted to get my son, when he started hunting, around some birds. And the grouse population where we live, it kind of cycles. It can be not many birds around for a couple, 3 years, and then it'll start to come back up, and then you can go out and take a walk and maybe get 10 flushes in 2 hours. And that's not how you want to break in a newbie. You want them to get some action, and that was one of the reasons that I started to poke my nose around down there. And then, of course, seeing the dogs work, that was a whole other thing that I had to get into pretty quick. The club has dogs. You don't need a dog to go there. But it's way more fun watching your dog than it is club dog, even though they're awesome.
Yeah. You bring up something interesting with Johnny. I loved on his truck. I don't remember the exact phrase, but I believe it was. I know the word artistry is used. I think it's maybe taxidermy artistry or something, right? And
wildlife artistry.
Wildlife artistry, yes. And walking through his shop, like he opened up his back door, you could immediately see the amount of pride he took in his work. The inside of this club is spectacular, but then you go back into his shop and you see, all the fish and all the wildlife that he is working on for his artistry, and he truly was and is an artist, right? He is so dialed into his craft. He's won the world championship for taxidermy, and I think the story that you shared with me is that one year he won first, second, and third place prize, and they asked him not to come back, which is that's kind of a boss move to take top 3 positions. Yeah, but no matter what, I think whenever I'm around somebody who is passionate about what they do and they really treat it as an art form, it's motivating, right? And so I think that you can do that no matter what it is, whether it's taxidermy. You saw that with Johnny, but Steve Jobs, right? Like in computers, you think, well, can you be an artist in computers? I mean, remember the story when he would early on, he would have the engineers that had worked on a computer. On the inside of it, the very first one they would do, he'd take it apart and he'd have everyone sign the inside of the cover for the computer. And one of the stories was one of the designers or engineers was like, well, why are you having us do that? And Steve's comment was, real artists sign their work. And, so no matter who you are around or what you do, when someone takes it serious and wants to be the absolute best at it, it's beautiful. It's art, and you enjoy being around those types of people. I felt that way around Johnny, and I think that's one of the reasons why you enjoy going to that club is because they see this as an art form in every aspect of it, right? The customer service, the experience, the way they guide, the way the dogs operate.
He had the best teeth in the world too, man.
Man, yeah, $1 million smile for sure.
Yeah, the smile, the teeth, man.
What is it you think about us that we are motivated and excited to be around people who are passionate with whatever pursuit that they're doing in life?
Well, what's exciting about that is just excitement itself, right? Mm-hmm. I think we've been around a lot of people that I always tell the story of my grandmother. She has passed away many years ago, but we loved her to death. But every time you ask her how she was, and this is when I was a little boy, I mean, it's like, hi, Grandma, hi, Joey, all this going on. And it's always, you ask her, even as a grandmother, she'd always say, well, my left hip's hurting, my right knee's not right, I beat up your grandfather. I'm joking, but, all these things or ailments were happening. And then by the time I was done, I loved my grandmother, but it always felt like it drug me down. Mm-hmm. Then when I was around other people that were now listen, not everything's perfect in life. Right. We know that. We have all bad days. But I just found that everybody's got their own day going on, and I gravitate to people that are just full of life, mm-hmm. right? And just because it's more fun, I truly believe that you can get more done in a day when it's fun. Mm-hmm. I truly believe it's more when you have more energy. Think about this: when you get up in the morning to go on vacation, it's a lot different if you get up in the morning to go to work. If you have a job, right? So it's a whole different. Why? Because you're going to have fun, right? But if you have fun at a job, it also can be fun. Like when I was a volunteer firefighter for all those years, I didn't like getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning for a structure fire or cardiac arrest or choking or whatever it had to be. But it wasn't. I'm not saying that was fun, but the adrenaline was enough to. You'd enjoy what you're doing, not to be fun, but if someone's got to do it, I wanted to be the guy to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's but the point being is just more, anytime there's more excitement around, I think the day just goes shorter. Not that we want our days to go shorter, but I just think, for me, I get more out of it. Mm-hmm. I gravitate to it.
That's great insight.
Can I add something there? Just that Joe Perkins thought with me when you mentioned your grandmother. My mom's mom, my Grandma Gray, my grandfather told me that if I liked to hunt as much as my grandma did when I was first starting to hunt, that I'd probably be a pretty good hunter. And so she was the one that kind of got me into it. a little bit,
Wow, that's interesting.
You see that you mentioned your grandma. It made me think about my grandmother in that regard, and she was always excited about any success that we had hunting, especially if I was the oldest grandchild of a whole bunch. But any success that they had hunting over the years, you could call Grandma, and Grandma could tell you who got a deer on what day of the season, and if they got it with a gun, if it was a bow and arrow. And my first trip out west to hunt out west was with her, and she outshot my grandpa.
So you did get your hunting skills or love for hunting from your grandmother, though?
I think so, yeah.
So why did Bob and I get the first 5 birds?
He let us. 100%. He let us.
No.
I know. Yes, he did.
My grandma was very gracious and always served others first.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great answer.
Just so you know, we know you let us have those first 5 birds. We know
I did not. That's not in my DNA. It's not. And if you remember correctly, and I was shooting a gun that I hadn't shot in a while, and I'm not blaming the equipment by any stretch of the imagination, but I was making a basic mistake. And when I finally I shot a bird, and then all of a sudden it occurred to me what I hadn't been doing, and then things went a little better for me after that. But it was I wrote it down here just while you were talking. I had to go back to the basics, and if you don't put your cheek down on the stock of the gun, the shot's not going where you're intending it to go, is what it really boils down to. And the worst thing that I can do when I'm shooting pigeons or clay pigeons or wild game that's flying is start thinking about aiming. You just pull up and react, and it's called mounting the gun. If you mount the gun correctly, things are going to work out with a positive result. Yeah. So, but what you said, it really made me think about what my grandfather said about my grandma. If I liked to hunt as much as she did, things were going to go well. So it's kind of cool.
Well, speaking of, you guys both gave memories and stories of your grandma. I have a similar one with my grandma Dickie, who just recently passed away this last year. And I remember she was a golf fanatic. And in retirement, her early years of retirement, she was golfing quite a bit at a little country club up in Eau Gray, Michigan. And I remember her taking me for the very first time and me swinging the club. And that's where I became, addicted to the game of golf, just absolutely loved it. And as I got older and she started, not playing as much, but anytime I'd go back and be around my grandma, I'd tell her about my latest golf game or how it was going. And I remember the last time I drove up to Michigan, I was and this was when she had taken the fall, and we knew kind of it was the time was kind of coming. And I knew when I went to her place to have my conversation with her, I knew it was going to be the last time I spoke with her. And I remember just sitting next to her in her bed, holding her hand and just recounting all the stories, all the memories, just thanking her for all the things that she had exposed me to as a little boy, and just being a great grandmother. And it reminds me of the people in life who take the time to help you and introduce you to things. How impactful that can be. And Kenny, that was one of the things I saw with you as we were walking around your house and you were pointing out those pictures. So you had a grandmother who did that for you and gave you and helped you have this desire to hunt and exposed you to that. And then you in turn have been that exact same type of person for scores of people, young kids, whether it's skiing or hunting or football or basketball. And there's you've had impact in a whole bunch of people's lives because you took the time to spend a little effort and energy helping young people, giving them tips, and they carry that with them for the rest of their life. There's no better way to spend a life than in the service of others. You just said a second ago, I know you said it as a little bit of a joke. Your grandmother told you to serve others, but that is a 100% the feeling I get hanging around you is that you love to be in the service of others and helping people. And it brings you such joy, right? That's just something that's natural to who you are. So I just want to thank you.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. My wife it's easy to do it when your running mate's doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, if I have, if there's a meter on how much of that you can do, my wife's needle is laying on the post. I'm telling you, it's she excels in that regard. And if we take it, I think I told you guys this, when we started the date 45 years ago in a very short period of time, she didn't know anybody that owned a firearm for hunting, self-defense, or anything, for art.
Yeah.
And so she talk about getting thrown off into the deep end of the pool before anybody knew you could swim.
Right. Yeah.
And she hung in there. So,
well, for those who are listening to the podcast as opposed to watching what I'm seeing right now, but right behind you in your office there, I mean, literally every wall in your house has a beautiful mount of an animal, whether it's a pheasant, some type of rare exotic bird. There's deer everywhere. I mean, you are an avid hunter. And there are guns everywhere, so it's like your entire house is a man cave. So your wife Kathy is a saint for saying, like, all right, honey, we'll let you decorate this home like a hunt lodge. But she truly is the best. The funny thing was, when Joe and I were driving up to stay with you guys, and I walked, like, you guys were like, all right, here's your bedroom, and I was like, this is. Whose room is this? I feel like I'm taking somebody's room. You're like, oh, no, you're not. This is your room. And sure enough, it was you and Kathy had given me your bedroom. And I was like, oh, my gosh, come on, guys. I can handle, you could put me on the couch downstairs in the guest room. But that's the type of servant heart that you have of just like, no, you can have our room. So
I knew your eyes when you saw it, when you walk in there, you had this big bed, own suite, his own sitting area, own door wall out to overlooking the bay.
I was like, this doesn't look like a guest bedroom. This looks like the master bedroom.
Well, that's definitely that's hilarious.
I think you asked me, and I did not lie. You asked me if this was our room, and I said, they're all our rooms.
Yeah.
It's my house.
Right.
I was just afraid you were going to want to stay in the motorhome.
I love your motorhome. I love your motorhome. We've had some good memories in that one as well. So tell us about this gun. That's one of the things that we've talked a little bit about, the artistic aspects of, hunting and so forth. But one of the things that I was just really astonished is just to see the artistry when we walked into this gun shop, and especially on these firearms. But you have a gun that's made in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a spectacular firearm. It is literally designed to. I love it. I'm definitely getting one. What's the name of it?
It's a Caesar Guerini.
Caesar Guerini. All right.
Yeah, and
sounds Italian. Oh, because it is.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you want me to tell about it. My high school football coach had the first over and under shotgun that I had ever seen. That was in 1969. I'd never seen one.
Okay.
And I was helping him at his house do some work one day on Saturday, and he brought this gun out to show it to me. And from that point on, I wanted one. I wanted an over and under. And 10 or 15 years ago, I had an opportunity to get the gun that Joe was shooting that day. And the high school principal here in Suttons Bay is an avid grouse hunter, and I was talking to him about, where you might go to look. And he told me where to go and to talk, ask if you could talk to a guy by the name of Brian, who you didn't get a chance to meet because he wasn't there.
Okay.
So I went there and I walked in, 5 o'clock at night, and he was closing at 6. He spent till 7:30 with me, letting me handle different guns, kind of getting me more comfortable, explaining a little bit to me. And I could have gone across the street, literally, and bought that gun for $200 less. But the guy had spent 2.5 hours with me. And I remember when he said, I said, I'm taking this one. And I said, now I need to look at the price tag, because I'd waited long enough that this was a $1,200 shotgun at the time, the one that Joe was shooting. And so I kind of developed a little bit of a relationship, and I don't mind looking at that as, this is not an extravagant gun collection or what you see behind me. I know people in our organization that have nicer trophy displays than I have, but it works for me, and I viewed all that stuff as art. Yeah. But his shop used to be next to the Hallmark store, and Kathy was in getting some cards, and I, of course, didn't want to miss an opportunity to go into the gun shop there, and he handed me a gun just to look at, and boy, it felt nice. It felt really nice. This is after I had the gun that Joe shot, and
is the gun that Joe shot also a Caesar Guarini, or is that a different one?
No, that's a Browning.
Okay, that's a Browning.
That's a Browning. The gun that you shot is the Caesar Guarini, and that's the one everybody shot that one at the Sporting Clay event. But anyway, I'll shorten the story up. Kathy walked in and caught me red-handed with this gun in my hand, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm looking at something I probably don't need," even though I was getting more and more attached to this thing, because it was like the third time I'd been in the store. I had a brochure in my desk, and she said, "Well, you had a good year. Go ahead and get it." And I remember Brian looked at me and said, "You have outkicked your coverage by marrying this lady." Yeah. And so that gun is probably now 12 or 13 years old, and that's the firearm that you shot.
Yeah. It feels so good in your hand. Oh my gosh, it's like a glove. It's just every aspect of that gun is beautiful, and it feels so great. I mean, you just love bringing it up to your cheek. I mean, it's just like, it's so natural, right? What did you call it when you use? Is it setting the gun? Is that or mounting the gun when you mount it?
Mounting the gun.
Mounting the gun is so easy.
Hey, you know what I just remember, Bob?
What's that?
We left Kenny and never cleaned our guns.
Well, I watched him. He cleaned them a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I cleaned all 3 of the guns while you took your nap, and Bob is my witness. And then I finished cleaning up the birds while you were doing your reading, and it's all good.
Yeah.
You got to take care. I mean,
I forgot about it. I just thought about it.
When you have something that works the way these things work, and you take care of it.
What's the name of the gun shop that you have there locally? Let's give them a shout out.
This is Field Sport, and they're known all over the place. Yeah. And Field Sport is the name, and Brian Belinsky is the owner. And I don't go in. I mean, he's the one that I was so into it that I really listened to what he was saying when he sold me that first gun. Yeah. And so I've helped people find guns other places, and I can kind of coach them a little as to, and coach them enough so that they can tell a difference in 2 firearms when they pull them off.
Well, I'm going to get one. I'm going to get one from his shop. So, Brian, it's Brian, right? Brian, you treat me well when I come up there.
There you go. You know what I noticed I was impressed with that shop too, guys? They had a gentleman sitting there, wasn't Brian, but one of his staff that knew all about. I mean, he had a nice wooden desk. You could tell he was the pro that knew all that. Everything there was to know about any of those firearms in there, he knew about it. You don't see that at other just regular retailers, right? That's why they specialize and do such a good job. My understanding is they ship stuff all over the country, right? Not just there locally.
Yeah, he used to travel I didn't tell Bob this because I wanted to make sure Bob came to Traverse City to meet him, but he travels down Bob's way, putting on clinics and things for shooting hunting clubs and sportsman organizations.
Nice.
And he might be starting to slide away from that a little bit because, like everybody else, he's getting a little bit older, but by no stretch of the imagination, my vintage. But it's just, it goes back to finding somebody you trust and then just listening.
Yep.
To what they have to say, and you can sort out.
Yep.
My son just had an experience. He purchased a firearm, and he called me when it was all over and told me what a terrible experience it was, but he didn't have a choice. He knew what he wanted because he's operates in that arena, but for his livelihood. But he said the way he was treated at the store and the carelessness of the staff when even handling the firearms caused him to be concerned. He was actually upset about that, which I guess it's a good thing he was upset. But you know, he's not careless with stuff like that. And Joe, you've met Cody. Bob hasn't yet.
Well, good. He had a good upbringing, right, Kenny? Because he knew what was right and what was wrong.
Well, his mom did a wonderful job.
That's right.
It's okay for you to take some credit too.
Yeah, we know who the credit goes to.
That's right.
Yeah. Everybody does.
Well, I'm sure you could probably, and it sounds like Cody had an experience maybe with a big box retailer or whatever. I won't mention names, but there is a big difference, I think, when you're walking into a small shop that specializes in a particular thing and they view it as art and they're passionate about it versus a big box retailer that's just like, we've got stuff in here, we're going to sell it. And maybe they're not as passionate about it. But you definitely got the sense that these gentlemen knew exactly what they were doing, loved the sport, loved the art that they were selling, because I truly believe that that's what it is. And when I go back, right, when I am ready to pull the trigger and get a new over under, that's where I'll be going. I'll be going with you, Kenny, and I'll be back there. And the next time I come up there, I'm going to bring a couple of my kids because I want them to experience the exact same thing that I did, and I want them to go through those fields and have a hunt, a successful hunt. And I think Johnny and his brothers that run that operation, there's no group of people I would rather take my children to have their first hunt than with those guys right there.
For sure. That whole crowd. There's a sister that's involved there as well. She is a self-trained vet. Wow. She takes care of the dogs that they hunt with.
Wow.
That's, you see her behind the scenes. But Johnny's, I think 37, and he's the eldest of the crew. You didn't get to meet them all, but
the talented family.
Yeah, it just goes to show that that family thing, and I don't know all of them like you do, Ken, but they're just a family. They're in business with their family and love what they do. What's better? I mean, they're doing exactly what they love to do every day with the dogs, own their own business, they make a living, married, have the kids, all that up in a beautiful area. So hats off to them. They're great people.
For sure.
And I will tell you one other thing about that family, that if we would not have had Johnny as our guide, his two brothers would have bragged on him for his taxidermy work like nobody's business while we were out. They just support each other really, really well.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Man, we've covered a lot of territory on this. I can't wait to get back to Sutton's Bay. Can't wait to get back for another pheasant hunt. But in the meantime, while we are planning our next adventure, I want to hear what you guys are reading currently. I love anytime I chat with people. I like to hear the books that they're reading, how they're learning, how they're growing. So, do you guys have a book that you're currently reading that is making an impact in your life or that you're enjoying? Leading with a Limp. Oh, it's a great one.
And
Kenny was, for those who are listening, Kenny held up a book, Leading with a Limp. Who's the author on that?
Dan B. Allender.
Okay.
And he's got a whole bunch of extra initials behind his name, which means he probably knows how to write stuff, I guess. I don't know.
There you go.
PhD is one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When you were here, I still go back to a book that that I read and recommended and gave to our coaching staff. That book, Whale Done, that we had that came through. I mean, you think about training dogs and coaching athletes and raising children and running a crew on a job site. I needed to read that one way earlier in my building career. There might not have been as many casualties on the job site as there was starting out. But that one is another one I go back to a lot.
What's a key principle out of whale? That's whale as in the fish, whale done, not well done. But what's a key principle for those who are listening at home?
For me, it was don't scold the behavior you don't want, but praise the behavior that you do. You know, and it applies to lots and lots of things, I think. I shared with you the story of our baseball team that had... Oh,
that's an incredible story. I love that.
That, you know, we got mercied in 3 innings by a team that was obviously better than us, but we weren't the team. And one of the coaches was going to tell them everything they did wrong, and he proceeded to do that and then asked if I had anything to add, which scared those that hadn't been called out already. And I just told them that I didn't basically, short story, I didn't recognize the team I just saw on the field. So the nightmare's over. The noise that they heard in the background was the alarm clock in the bat bag. The nightmare's over. Go have your in between the game snack. And we ended up coming back and beating that team in the second game of the doubleheader. But no point in scolding them. They didn't make the errors on purpose. They were trying to do it right. It just didn't work out. And that was proof in the pudding right there for me that, you know, we don't need to dwell on the mistakes. Let's dwell on the positive stuff and move forward. And that's the premise of the book. You don't take a 135-pound female trainer and put them in a pool with a killer whale and have them scold them, thinking there's going to be a pleasant outcome for anybody, I guess.
True statement. Well, thanks for sharing. Joey, how about you?
Well, Bob, a couple of weeks ago, you suggested I read a book you thought was great, The Obstacle is the Way. And I think I called you even a week ago. I know you and I meet on a weekly basis, and I was talking about actually section 2 of this whole book about just keep moving. So it's by Ryan Holiday, I think is the author. So The Obstacle is the Way. So many times in life, the biggest thing I remember calling you, Bob, on this. Like, you get nuggets out of what you read, but this one just kind of, maybe some of the things I was going through at the time. But whenever there's obstacles, so many times people just sit and trying to figure out, you know, try to navigate what to do. There's an obstacle. But the biggest key I got out of that book, and I strongly encourage anybody to read, it's not on our Book of the Month club yet, but I'm sure it will be, is just get moving, do something. You can't sit. And I don't know if you guys have done this. I know Kenny well enough that I'm sure that you get into a spot where just things weren't going as the way you really wanted them to, and you just sit there and you just start thinking negative. You start thinking, and the best way to get out of that is just to stink and get moving. Go do something. Work toward getting out of that obstacle, because it's not going to change. The obstacle's still there, right? So just getting through the obstacle. It's just an unbelievable reminder for me, because I could feel myself getting to that, and I've learned that years ago, but just to hear it written in a different form just was really enlightening to me for sure.
That has been an enormously impactful book for me, especially, you know, going through the whole last couple of years, you know, the COVID issues, and then we have the global economy and inflation, all the various things that are going on, and just knowing it's like, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be obstacles. If you in business leaders and owners have had to navigate a labyrinth of challenging times. But the thing that you can't do is just sit there and be like, well, hopefully this will blow over and I'm just going to wait for better days. It's like, no, you got to lean in. You have to get up. You have to be in action. Focus on the things that you can control. Understand every single day there's going to be an obstacle, a challenge, something, right? That could be frustrating, but you've got to have to figure out how to navigate it, how to pivot, how to adapt, how to overcome. So it's like that book right there is such a... It's a great book to help you stay in action mode. And when you're in action, you're going to have success. When you stop, so one of the principles, my brother's an Army Ranger, and it's on the battlefield. The quickest way to die is to stay in one place. It is shoot, move, shoot, move, shoot, move. You're constantly looking at improving your fighting position, and right. And so business is no different. If you just sit there, we're gonna get steamrolled, right? And so The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, phenomenal book to help people stay in action mode. So shoot, move, just like hunting, right, Kenny? I mean, we had a great spot where we flushed a bunch of birds, but we got to keep on moving down through that cornfield, get more targets.
Not many pheasants have been killed from a recliner.
That's right.
Only on YouTube.
That's right.
Yeah.
Remember, did you guys play that old Nintendo game? Remember the very first Nintendo that came out, and they had that shooting game. It was like you had a little gun, and it was like the little dog would pop up, and then like the birds would fly, and yeah, exactly. You have to reload it.
Would pop up, Bob.
Yeah.
Remember?
Oh, yeah.
So you'd see it like this plastic thing popping up on you.
Oh man, I played that by the hours. I loved it.
Nintendo hasn't made it to the northern part of the state yet, so
you guys are still using 8-tracks up there, Kenny.
Yeah. I just learned how to operate the Wii knitting machine.
Well, we're definitely going to have another hunting excursion up to Sutton's Bay. Spend some time with Ken and Kathy Herman and the great team up there, and I can't wait. You've got Ken. I know we started off at the beginning of this just talking about the relationships that you've built up there, the people that you're serving in the community, and how you've been serving the kids. But you've done a phenomenal job. I can't wait to get back up there and spend time with you. And so, for those listening, if you want to have some fun, figure out a time when we can all get together and go back up there. It'll be an adventure that you don't want to miss. Right, Joe?
Sure. Amen. I'm not going to miss it.
That's right. Me neither.
Joe was a little bit iffy about even going with us.
That is so true, but I'm so glad I did. This is everybody knows. Like, I've hunted years ago and all that, and went deer hunt. I've done all, but over 20 years, I just haven't been much except for sporting clay with you guys and that. Yep. So I told Ken, I said, I'll just get back, maybe stay back, help the girls get some things ready or something, and you guys can all go because Jim Martin was going to be, obviously here. Mm-hmm. You guys are all pros, but I'm so glad I went because I'd go again tomorrow if we, there wasn't an Illinois football game. I'd go up there. It was a riot.
It was a blast.
And we had a lot of fun, and thanks for inviting us, and it was a great time for sure.
All right. Well, I'm counting on you two to kind of start circling some dates and figuring out when our next adventure is. We got to do it.
Let's roll. Kenny's probably already got it circled before he even ends this podcast. That's right. And your bed will be ready for you, Bob. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, next time I know what's going on. I know my way to the basement, and I will find my way to the guest bedroom down there. But I won't be taking the master bedroom again. But thank you for your hospitality, Kenny, and please pass my thanks on to your incredible wife.
Yeah. No, she is incredible. Yeah. I think she's passing through here every once in a while listening to some of this. So.
Oh, that's great.
So make sure you're talking good about her like you always do.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's right.
If you guys saw Kenny's face, you guys are missing. I know this is going to be out on audio.
The facial expressions are the best. Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, guys, I thank you for the time that you've invested in this today. This has been phenomenal. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week in Independence, Missouri. Then, of course, we will be back up there in Sutton's Bay soon, Ken, for another epic hunt. But thanks for your time. Yeah. Thanks for your information. And appreciate you investing with us today.
Oh, no worries. No worries. Thank you so much.
Great podcast, Bob. Keep up the good work. We love listening to it, and I hope everybody else does too out there also.
Oh, thanks, partner. Today's episode was engineered by Mitch White with graphic and marketing help by my daughter, Tristan Dickey. Special thanks to our guests, Joe D'Arcangelo and Ken Herman, for taking the time to be with us. Please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcast, or if you're an Android user, check us out on Spotify. If you like the show, please share it with a friend and give us a review. That's always appreciated and helpful. Thank you for listening to this podcast. We will be back later with more interviews with thought leaders, business owners, and entrepreneurs, the movers and shakers taking leaps in life and in their careers to do interesting things, fostering change and making the world a better place.